Welcome to our deep dive into the legendary sister ships Titanic, Britannic and Olympic. These magnificent vessels, born from the ambition of the White Star Line, were designed to dominate the transatlantic passenger trade, each a marvel of early 20th century engineering and opulence. They shared a common lineage, a grand design, yet their individual fates carved vastly different paths into the annals of maritime history. From celebrated luxury to wartime service, and from tragic disaster to steadfast reliability, it's a story of ambition, innovation, human drama, and the often unpredictable power of the natural world. Here on ZPR 45, I embark on a journey back in time to an era when these colossal liners were the undisputed queens of the ocean. We will meticulously examine their unique stories, their triumphs, and their tragedies. Today we'll explore which of these iconic vessels stands out as the best, not merely in terms of grandeur or infamy, but by considering their entire service, their impact, and their enduring legacies. It is a complex tapestry we shall unravel, woven with threads of steel, steam, and human spirit. Join me as we navigate the currents of history, comparing these three remarkable sisters. We shall look beyond the myths and legends to uncover the intricate details of their construction, their intended purpose, and the extraordinary circumstances that defined their existence. From the drawing boards of Harland and Wolff to the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Atlantic and the Aegean, their stories are waiting to be told anew, allowing us to appreciate the full scale of their impact on the world. The RMS Titanic, even the name resonates with a profound sense of grandeur and an equally profound sorrow. She was conceived in an age of burgeoning industrial might, a testament to humanity's belief that it could conquer any challenge, tame any ocean. Her keel was laid in the famed Harland and Wolff shipyards in Belfast, a place where dreams were forged in steel, and her construction was an undertaking of monumental proportions, watched by an eager world. She was to be the jewel in the White Star Line's crown, surpassing her elder sister Olympic in subtle refinements and lavish appointments. Imagine the sheer scale, over 882 feet in length, a behemoth designed not just for transport but for an experience of unparalleled luxury. The ambition was palpable, the promise of a new era in ocean travel whispered in every rivet, every polished deck, every intricately carved panel within her vast interiors. Her interiors were a floating palace. The grand staircase, crowned with its magnificent glass dome, was an architectural marvel, inviting passengers into a world of elegance. First-class suites offered comforts and amenities that rivaled the finest hotels on land, with private promenades and exquisite furnishings. Even for those in second and third class, the standards were remarkably high for the time, a significant step up from what many transatlantic travelers had previously experienced. The Titanic was more than just a ship. She was a statement of progress, of British maritime supremacy, and of a confidence that in retrospect seems almost hubristic. She boasted advanced safety features for her era, including 16 watertight compartments equipped with automatically closing doors, designed to keep her afloat even if several were breached. This led to the infamous and ultimately tragic claim of her being unsinkable. Her maiden voyage, commencing on April 10, 1912, from Southampton, was an event of international significance. Passengers from all walks of life, from the wealthiest industrialists to hopeful emigrants seeking a new life in America, filled her decks. There was an air of excitement, of participating in a historic moment, little knowing the grim history that was yet to be written in the cold, dark waters of the North Atlantic. The journey began smoothly enough, the massive engines propelling her westwards at a steady pace. The Atlantic, in those early days of April, was calm yet held a hidden menace. Reports of ice, not uncommon for that time of year, had been received by the Titanic's wireless operators, but the sheer confidence in the vessel's design perhaps led to a sense of complacency, a belief that she could weather any such navigational hazard. On the fateful night of April 14th, the sea was exceptionally still, a mill pond, as some survivors later described it. This calmness, ironically, made spotting icebergs more difficult, as there were no waves breaking at their base to give visual warning. The lookouts, perched high in the crow's nest, strained their eyes in the moonless night, their task made harder by the lack of binoculars, a detail often debated in the aftermath. Then, at 11:40 p.m. ship's time, the call came, "Iceberg right ahead!" Despite the swift actions of First Officer Murdoch to steer the ship clear and reverse the engines, the Titanic was too large, her momentum too great. The submerged spur of the ancient ice, carved from a Greenland glacier, tore a series of gashes along the starboard hull below the waterline, breaching 5, possibly 6, of her watertight compartments. The damage, though not immediately apparent to all on board, was fatal. The very safety feature designed to protect her, the compartmentalization, was overcome because the breach was too extensive. Water began to pour into the forward sections of the ship, pulling her bow ever deeper into the icy embrace of the ocean. The unsinkable, it transpired, was sinking. The hours that followed were a descent into unimaginable horror, punctuated by moments of extraordinary courage and heartbreaking loss. The distress calls crackled out into the night, but the nearest ship, the Carpathia, was hours away. The launching of the lifeboats was a fraught process, hampered by a lack of crew training for such an emergency, and tragically, an insufficient number of lifeboat seats for everyone on board. Many lifeboats left partially empty, a consequence of confusion, the initial reluctance of passengers to leave the seeming safety of the massive liner for small open boats in the freezing darkness, and the women and children first protocol being interpreted differently by officers on either side of the ship. The band famously played on, their music a poignant soundtrack to the unfolding catastrophe. As the bow sank lower, the stern rose high into the air, a terrifying spectacle against the star-strewn sky. The immense stresses on the hull became too much to bear, and with a series of deafening roars, the Titanic broke apart between the third and fourth funnels. This structural failure hastened her final plunge into the abyss. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the RMS Titanic vanished beneath the waves, taking with her more than 1,500 souls. The cries of those in the water, a haunting chorus in the freezing air, gradually faded as hypothermia claimed its victims. The few who had found refuge in the lifeboats could only watch and wait for a rescue that for many came too late. The sinking of the Titanic sent shockwaves around the world. It was a stark reminder of the power of nature and the fallibility of human ambition. The inquiries that followed led to significant changes in maritime safety regulations, including the requirement for sufficient lifeboats for all on board, mandatory lifeboat drills, and the establishment of the International Ice Patrol. Her wreck lay undisturbed for over 70 years, a silent tomb nearly 2.5 miles beneath the surface, until its discovery in 1985 by Dr. Robert Ballard. This discovery reignited public fascination and allowed for a deeper understanding of the ship's final moments and the processes of decay in the deep ocean environment. The Titanic's story is not just one of disaster, but also of human behavior under extreme pressure. Tales of heroism, self-sacrifice, and cowardice emerged, painting a complex picture of humanity facing its ultimate test. She remains a powerful symbol, a cultural touchstone that continues to fascinate and horrify in equal measure. Her legacy, therefore, is dual, a monument to a lost age of opulence and technological confidence, and a somber lesson in humility before the forces of the natural world. She was, in her brief existence, magnificent, but her true immortality was secured not by her grandeur, but by the profound tragedy of her end. The third and largest of the Olympic-class liners, the vessel originally intended to be named Gigantic, was launched as the Britannic. Her story is one of adaptation, of a grand design repurposed for the urgent, grim necessities of war. Before she could ever embark on a commercial voyage carrying fare-paying passengers across the Atlantic in the luxury intended by her creators, the world was plunged into the crucible of the First World War. Her construction, which had commenced after the Titanic's loss, incorporated several design changes learned from that disaster. These included a double hull along the engine and boiler rooms, and raising 5 of the watertight bulkheads all the way to B deck. The gantry davits for her lifeboats were also made much larger, capable of launching boats even if the ship had a significant list. She was intended to be the safest of the sisters, but global conflict has a way of redirecting even the grandest of plans. In 1915, with the war raging and casualties mounting, the Britannic was requisitioned by the British Admiralty. Her opulent fittings, destined for luxurious suites and grand public rooms, were largely put into storage, replaced by the stark, functional equipment of a hospital ship. Her gleaming white hull was adorned with enormous red crosses and a green stripe, symbols of mercy. Designated His Majesty's hospital ship Britannic, her mission was to ferry wounded and sick soldiers from the Mediterranean theatre, particularly from the ill-fated Gallipoli campaign, back to the United Kingdom. Her vast size, originally intended for thousands of passengers and crew, was now utilised to accommodate over 3,300 patients, along with medical staff and her regular crew. She was a floating sanctuary amidst the chaos of war. The transformation was thorough. Wards filled her spacious decks, operating theatres were equipped, and promenades once envisioned for leisurely strolls became exercise areas for recovering soldiers. The scale of the medical operation she could support was immense, a vital link in the chain of evacuation and care that saved countless lives. She was a beacon of hope for those shattered by the brutality of trench warfare and disease. Her service in this capacity began in late 1915. She successfully completed 5 voyages to the eastern Mediterranean, transporting thousands of wounded men. The conditions on board, though austere compared to her planned luxury, were efficient and provided a level of care that was remarkable given the circumstances. Nurses and doctors worked tirelessly, a testament to human compassion in the face of widespread conflict. The Aegean Sea, her primary area of operation, was not without its dangers. Though hospital ships were, by international convention, protected from direct attack, the waters were infested with naval mines laid by German U-boats and their allies. The risk was ever present, a silent, unseen threat lurking beneath the waves, indiscriminate in its destructive potential. On the morning of November 21st, 1916, while on her 6th voyage, steaming through the Kea Channel in the Aegean Sea, the Britannic's fate was sealed. At 8:12 a.m., a sudden, violent explosion rocked the massive ship. It's widely believed she struck a German mine, though the possibility of a torpedo, despite her hospital ship markings, has never been entirely ruled out by all. The damage was catastrophic, occurring on her starboard side, near the bow. Unlike the Titanic, where the flooding was initially slower and spread across several compartments, the explosion on Britannic seems to have caused more immediate and widespread damage, possibly compromising a fireman's tunnel or major bulkhead, leading to rapid inundation of forward compartments. Crucially, many of the portholes on the lower decks had been opened by the nurses to air out the wards, against standing orders. As the ship began to list to starboard and her bow dipped, these open portholes allowed the sea to pour in, bypassing the watertight integrity of compartments further aft and significantly accelerating the sinking process. A small oversight with devastating consequences. Captain Charles Bartlett, a seasoned mariner, immediately ordered the watertight doors closed and sent out a distress signal. He also attempted to beach the ship on the nearby island of Kea, a desperate maneuver to save his command. However, the increasing list and the rapid flooding made this impossible. The ship was doomed and sinking far faster than her ill-fated sister Titanic. The evacuation, though hurried, was more orderly than the Titanic's, partly due to the lessons learned and the improved lifeboat systems. However, tragedy struck when 2 lifeboats, launched without authorization, while the propellers were still turning as Captain Bartlett was attempting to reach Kea, were drawn into the massive, still rotating screws and smashed, killing 30 people. This was the single largest loss of life during the sinking. Once the captain realized the attempt to beach was futile and the danger posed by the propellers, he ordered the engines stopped and the evacuation continued more safely. The ship sank with terrifying speed. Within just 55 minutes of the explosion, the colossal HMHS Britannic, once a symbol of healing, plunged bow first beneath the waves of the Aegean. Remarkably, despite the speed of her sinking and the initial lifeboat accident, the vast majority of the 1,065 people on board was saved. Fishing boats from the nearby village of Carissia on Kea, along with British warships in the area, responded quickly to the distress calls and picked up survivors from the water and the remaining lifeboats. The final death toll was 30, a tragic loss, but far fewer than the Titanic's devastating numbers. The wreck of the Britannic was discovered in 1975 by the legendary explorer Jacques Cousteau. She lies on her starboard side in relatively shallow water around 400 feet deep, making her the largest passenger liner on the seabed. Her condition is remarkably good, partly due to the warmer waters and different conditions compared to the Titanic's deep Atlantic grave. The Britannic's story is one of unfulfilled promise as a liner, transformed into a narrative of wartime service and sacrifice. She never carried a paying passenger, never completed a commercial voyage. Instead, her brief life was dedicated to alleviating suffering, a noble purpose cut short by the brutal realities of war. Her legacy is complex, a ship built for peace, yet defined by conflict. She stands as a testament to the medical personnel who served aboard her and the countless lives she helped save before her own demise. Though her life was short, her contribution during the Great War was significant, a gentle giant lost in a world consumed by violence. To Chapter 3, RMS Olympic, the Old Reliable Survivor. The first of the White Star Line's magnificent trio, the RMS Olympic, often stands in the shadow of her more famous, ill-fated sisters. Yet her story is one of remarkable longevity, resilience, and distinguished service, earning her the affectionate nickname Old Reliable. She was the trailblazer, the ship that first brought the vision of this new class of liner to life, launched in 1910. Her early career was one of glamour and success. She quickly became a favorite on the North Atlantic run, embodying the luxury and scale that her designers had envisioned. Passengers marveled at her spaciousness, her elegant public rooms, and the smooth power of her engines. She set a new standard for transatlantic travel, fulfilling the White Star Line's ambitions to compete with Cunard's Lusitania and Mauretania. However, her initial years were not without incident. In 1911, she collided with the Royal Navy cruiser HMS Hawke off the Isle of Wight. The collision caused significant damage to both vessels, with the Olympic's hull breached above and below the waterline. She limped back to Southampton and then to Belfast for extensive repairs, a process that ironically delayed the completion of the Titanic. The lessons learned from the Hawke collision, and more profoundly from the Titanic disaster in 1912, led to significant structural modifications for the Olympic. Her watertight bulkheads were extended higher. An inner watertight skin was constructed along her hull for much of her length, similar to what was being done for Britannic, and she was fitted with a full complement of lifeboats for all souls aboard. These changes greatly enhanced her safety. When the First World War erupted in 1914, the Olympic initially continued her commercial service, but the dangers of U-boat warfare soon made this untenable. In 1915, she was requisitioned by the Admiralty and converted into a troop ship designated HMT, Hired Military Transport, Olympic. Her luxurious fittings were covered or removed, and her hull was painted in dazzling camouflage to confuse enemy periscopes. Her wartime service was nothing short of extraordinary. She became a workhorse, ferrying hundreds of thousands of Allied troops, particularly Canadians and Americans, across the Atlantic to the European theatre. Her speed and size made her a difficult target for U-boats, though she had several close encounters. The vastness of the ocean was her hunting ground, and she navigated it with a determined purpose. One of her most famous wartime exploits occurred in May 1918. While transporting US troops, she sighted a German U-boat, U-103, on the surface. Instead of attempting to evade, Captain Bertram Hayes ordered the Olympic to turn and ram the submarine. The massive liner, nearly 30 times the U-boat's displacement, struck the smaller vessel, sending it to the bottom. It was a rare instance of a merchant vessel sinking an enemy warship. This act of aggression, born from the necessity of survival and the imperative to protect her human cargo, cemented her reputation for toughness. The troops she carried often referred to her with respect and affection. She was their steadfast guardian, a reliable behemoth ploughing through dangerous waters, always bringing them safely to their destination or back home. After the armistice in 1918, the Olympic underwent an extensive refit to restore her to her former glory as a passenger liner, this time converting her boilers to run on oil instead of coal, which was cleaner and more efficient. She returned to commercial service in 1920, her reputation enhanced by her wartime exploits. Passengers flocked to sail on the Old Reliable, the ship that had faced the perils of war and emerged victorious. Throughout the 1920s, she enjoyed a highly successful career, a golden age for transatlantic travel. She remained a popular and fashionable choice. Even as newer liners began to appear, she was a familiar sight in Southampton and New York, a symbol of consistency and enduring quality. Her interiors, restored and updated, once again echoed with music, laughter, and the hum of sophisticated society. She adapted to changing times, offering tourist third cabin class in the later 1920s to cater to a new type of traveller, including academics, students, and families seeking affordable passage. This flexibility helped maintain her viability in an increasingly competitive market. She was more than just a luxury liner, she was a versatile and adaptable vessel. However, the Great Depression of the 1930s hit the shipping industry hard. Passenger numbers dwindled, and the grand old liners became increasingly expensive to operate. The merger of White Star Line with its rival Cunard Line in 1934, forming Cunard White Star, spelled the beginning of the end for many older vessels, including the Olympic. Despite her reliable service and strong following, she was aging. Newer, more modern liners like the Queen Mary were on the horizon. In 1935, after 24 years of remarkable service spanning peace and war, the decision was made to withdraw the Olympic from service. It was a poignant moment, the end of an era for this grand dame of the seas. Her final voyage was to Jarrow, England, for scrapping. Many of her fine interior fittings were auctioned off and can still be found in various buildings and private collections today, preserving a tangible link to her opulent past. The dismantling of Old Reliable provided much-needed work for the Depression-hit town, a final act of service. Unlike her sisters, the Olympic lived a long and largely prosperous life. She weathered storms, collisions, war, and economic downturns, consistently performing her duties with distinction. She outlasted all her direct competitors from the pre-war era, a true survivor in a demanding and often dangerous profession. Her legacy is one of steadfastness and adaptability. She was not just a ship, she was a character, a personality on the Atlantic. While Titanic is remembered for tragedy and Britannic for its brief, noble sacrifice, Olympic stands as a testament to endurance and successful, sustained service over nearly a quarter of a century. She carried royalty, celebrities, immigrants, and soldiers. She witnessed immense historical change, from the height of Edwardian confidence to the depths of global war and economic depression. The Old Reliable truly earned her name, proving to be the most successful and arguably the most fortunate of the three legendary sisters. And so, we've journeyed through the remarkable yet starkly contrasting sagas of the Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. From the unparalleled luxury and tragic destiny of the Titanic, a name forever etched in our collective consciousness, to the Britannic's noble, albeit short-lived, transformation into a vessel of mercy during the Great War, and finally to the Olympic's long and distinguished career as the Old Reliable, each ship tells a unique and compelling story. Their shared DNA gave rise to individual legacies that continue to captivate and inspire study. Choosing which of these magnificent liners reigns supreme is a complex task, for each excelled in different, poignant ways. Was it the Titanic for her unmatched opulence and the profound global impact of her loss, forcing a paradigm shift in maritime safety? Or perhaps the Britannic, whose brief life was dedicated to the selfless act of healing, a beacon of hope amidst conflict? Or does the title belong to the Olympic, the steadfast survivor who served faithfully through peace and war, completing over 2 decades of service? The answer perhaps lies not in a definitive declaration, but in appreciating the distinct virtues each vessel embodied. Their stories are a powerful reminder of human ambition, ingenuity, sacrifice, and the enduring dialogue between humanity and the vast, indifferent ocean. So, which sister ship do you think is the best? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating historical comparisons here on ZPR 45. Until next time, may your curiosity continue to explore the depths of history.